Now we're talking about the computerization of society and robotics technology, right? Now we talked about the 1% on top, the bankers and all of them, corporate America, they got the big bucks and the connections, right? And then you got the masses of people, which is about what, 95 to 98% of the population. So basically, what do you have here? What kind of social structure do you have? Who's in between that layer, Mr. Bob? The 1% and those at the bottom. Who's
the engineers? The engineers.
Don't talk too much because it gets loud. Go ahead.
The technicians, the engineers.
The engineers. So are they the ones that should be kind of revolting?
They should.
In terms of keeping track of this, are they being exploited too? And like Miss Cadell said, that they're going to be taking themselves out of extinction too through robotic technology. All right. So this is a digital literacy course, right? We spoke about the CPU and how the CPU processes information in binary digits, right? Zeros and ones. Now, the articles that we have here is going to be dealing with wireless 5G technology. And this is coming from the Computer Science Division of the IEEE, which is a professional institute for electrical and electronics engineering institution. Okay, made up of primarily engineers and professionals. Folks that are scientifically intense, especially mathematically, and programmers and engineers that know what's going on inside, the circuitry of these apparatuses. So there's an article here on channel bonding and evolving wireless LAN. Does anybody know what LAN stand for, Mr. Bob? LAN?
Honestly, it slipped my mind.
Yeah, okay, well, they usually say we can only keep 7 pieces of information in our brain simultaneously. So when I told it to you, Mr. Bob, you should have wrote it down. LAN stands for Local Area Networks. And then you have WLAN, Wide Local Area Networks. All right? So this particular article says this installment of Computer Series highlighting the work published in IEEE Computer Society journals comes from IEEE Transactions on Mobile Computing. With the wide deployment of the IEEE 802.11n standard, and with the upcoming 802.11 AC, WLANs, wide local area networks, now have the option to operate over wider channels that achieve higher capacity. Increasing channel width increases capacity, but at the cost of decreased transmission range and greater susceptibility to interference. However, the incorporation of multiple input, multiple output, they call it MIMO for short, smart antenna technology into 802.11n devices mitigates the problems that single input, single output, or SISU systems typically face. And devices can exploit the increased transmission rates from wider channels with minimal sacrifice to signal quality and range. Did it all sound foreign to you?
Yeah.
Exactly. These are terminologies that are used within a circle of techies and engineers developing these methods, these schemes. I mean, these are the people that are really innovative and know what they're talking about. All right. So 802.11 is just a protocol that IEEE has developed on how packets of information should be transmitted. Just about ready to read an article on how the internet was brought to Africa via the University of Ghana. Nia Quenor, or Bringing the Internet to Africa. This is an article written by Charles Severance from the University of Michigan. The story of bringing the internet to Africa is one of cooperation and collaboration for the common good. In the early 1990s, African countries started upgrading from store and forward networks such as FidoNet and UUCP to always-on internet connections. I spoke with Ni, which is N-I-I, Quaynor, Quaynor, who is a founding member of the Department of Computer Science at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, about what it took to build a community around internet technology in Africa. He says you can visit www.computer.org/computing conversations for more of this discussion. So here's a subtitle within Ghana. As the internet spread around the world in the 1980s, the first connections typically were universities. But for many countries in Africa, interest in the internet was initially limited to a relatively small group. Quaynor didn't want to wait for the government or his university, so he took the initiative and started working through a small private company to bring the first internet connection to Ghana. Government wasn't interested, so the private sector took it up. But the private sector in this case was me. I realized I would have had to wait on a university forever because it depends on the government. And I would have had to wait on the government forever because it had no clue. I knew how to do it, so I decided to go for it no matter how small it ended up being, just to make the point that it is possible. So he was confident that it could be done. And in so doing, maybe I could create an avalanche that will carry us forward. Is anybody following me so far? Mm-hmm. This guy took the initiative. He wasn't waiting for no bureaucracy, no government. He's doing it on his own.
He wanted to make his own wave.
Yeah, for the purpose of academia. And that was the initial intent of the internet anyway, to promote research in the universities and colleges around the world. But first it was the United States. Elsewhere in Africa, different models prevail for bringing in internet connections. In Egypt, the government was interested and involved very early on it. In South Africa, strong academic leadership made a difference. In West Africa, Quaynor encouraged and helped small private sector efforts throughout the region. And this is what he has to say. I allowed Togo and other countries to transit their data through my connection in Ghana. And I sent engineers to install nodes in Gambia. Swaziland brought telephone company staff to me to be trained. And I did consulting services to help Ethiopia. We were helping each other for the common good because we really felt that we had to pull together or we would fall. Just like anywhere else in the world, the first step was simply to get connected one way or another. Once people found out about the internet, they were in a hurry to get there by any means possible. So we all know what the internet is comprised of, right? What two words?
Interconnected network.
Interconnected networks. This is what Quaynor had to say. It was a mad rush, but it was a good community building activity in the sense that we wanted to help each other. That sense of community across operators continues to this day. I run the African Network Operators Group, or APNOG for short, the principal function of which is to help operators support their building capacity in many different areas, mostly in infrastructure, related things such as routing issues or servers for those who want to build information resources. HAFNOG is home to most of the African continent's technical community. Their website is www.afnog.org. The group meets 2 weeks each year. 1 week is dedicated to training and workshops, and the following week involves discussions around government, governance, research, and other activities. One of the main goals is to continue to grow the community and build network talent across Africa. This is what Quaynor says. Nobody gets paid, but we try to raise money for student participants. Cisco is a regular funding source, and we get funding from the International Development Research Center, the Internet, Society, Francophone, Google, and many others. Over time, we've become more self-sustaining. We ask participants from telco operators to pay higher rates so we can raise funds for academic and research participants. Once initial connectivity was in place for these countries, a whole range of scaling, deployment, and policy issues became the focus. APNOG functioned from the beginning as an incubator for governance efforts such as the Africa Top-Level Domain Organization. Here's another subtitle as he continues. Toward Afrinic. They made up that word, huh? Afrinic. The Internet is built on Internet Protocol addresses. I covered that before, didn't I? Didn't I cover that? ICON is the organization that issues internet addresses, right? We all heard of that, right? http://www.cnr.edu. That's an internet address, a domain name. So you sign up for it. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transmission Protocol. Their careful management and coordination is necessary to make sure that packets are properly routed between systems connected to the internet anywhere in the world. The first IP or Internet Protocol addresses for those early connections on the African continent were managed in an ad hoc manner, with each country getting address blocks from one of the other 4 regional internet registries: North America, South and Central America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. That's a handout. As the internet in Africa matured, it was important for Africans to take over this network management task. Afrinic would be the world's 5th FRIR, right? Which is regional internet registries. But it was important that the entire continent be a single registry regardless of country and political boundaries. Operating a regional internet registry requires a great deal of agreement, technical know-how, and organizational capability. This is what Quaynor has to say. The particular case of Afrinic was interesting. It took us 10 years to get accreditation. Of course, in the beginning, we didn't even know what a NIC was, but we knew it was very important. So we started to build consensus around it. In the mid-1990s, when there were a few connections in each country and most of the operators knew each other, it seemed like a relatively simple matter to create Afrinic. But as internet connectivity in Africa expanded, new stakeholders kept joining the discussion. It was clear that more structure was needed, so the people involved in the creation of Afrinic switched from an informal process to a more formal one in 1998. So this is what he has to say. The first proposal was made in 1995 and another in 1997. But we realized that we had to move beyond casual meetings. We went to Cotonou, Bentley in 1998 to agree on specifics such as who would be on the board. We decided to do it geographically to avoid questions like, why are there so many people from the north and nobody from the south? We decided that each one of the geographical subregions would elect one person. The members would elect their representative, and that person will serve on the board for a period of 1 to 3 years with staggered re-elections. The effort to create a formal legal structure for Afrine continued, but was repeatedly set back as connectivity exploded in the late 1990s. John Postel administered the Worldwide Internet Assigned Numbers Authority and was a great supporter of Afrine's formation. He and Quaynar were close friends. This is Quaynar. John told me, just do it. It has to happen. So I invited him to come to a meeting with African engineers. In the middle of the meeting, someone got up and said, why don't we just split this up into the individual countries and have us all go our separate ways? At that point, I thought we were done. And to be honest with you, I've never felt so ashamed because I have been part of the interface between the African technical community and the global community. I knew John Postel as a friend, and he had come to help me, but my people weren't ready. John simply told me, get your people ready, and you will have it. The efforts to build Afrine continued, and it was formally recognized as the RIR for the African continent in April 2005. But the struggle wasn't without its consequences. Quaynar, I realized that over those 10 years, I had upset a lot of people. The other registries had to give something up so that Afrine could exist. To me, it was obvious that I couldn't continue to the same capacity as a leader of Afrine once it became official. Quaynar also feared that his leadership might be a barrier to broader involvement of the more recent participants. He felt the need for a fresh start as Afrine was being formed. Quaynar, if I were to continue as a leader, we would get less participation. There would be less motivation for people to make an effort. I felt it was more it's almost over. I felt it was more important for more people to make an effort than to have just one person driving things forward. I knew that the problem space was so large that even if I had nothing to do with Afrine, there was plenty for me to do elsewhere. At the moment when Afrine was legally transitioning from its start-up board and chairman to its first official board and chair, Quaynar dissolved the board and resigned as chair. He didn't run for election and encouraged many other longtime leaders in the movement to step aside and allow new leaders to emerge. A complete fresh start created a certain flow of new entrants who wanted to contribute service and leadership to the community, and it continues to this day, and it's been very good for Afrine. The story of bringing the internet to Africa is one of cooperation and collaboration for the overall good. One of the benefits of the internet is that it crosses political, geographical, business, and legal boundaries and brings people together to find what they have in common. Okay, guys, so now you have an historical perspective of how the internet came to Africa via the way of what? University of Ghana. Interesting, right? Okay, so you know how to play it.
Got it right, you got it wrong. On the street with an X5, middle finger in the air, or in the air with a G5, I stun hard.